Today on Locked On Rockies, the playoff format. It's still a contentious topic as another big team falls. Well, as Rockies fans, we got to learn to love it because it's going to benefit us eventually.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 12th day of October in the year 2023. I am your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, you're in the right spot. That's what we do around here, is talk about the Colorado Rockies each and every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the Locked On Rockies podcast feeds, which are available on your favorite streaming service, and the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where your subscription is the best way to help the show grow. And I really, really appreciate y'all tuning in and checking us out and giving us a chance as we talk about the Roccos here. We're going to talk about the playoffs really today. Another reminder, this isn't the first time we've covered this topic, and we mentioned it before, but this format is designed to give teams like the Diamondbacks and the Rockies a chance. The Rockies have a lot of work to do and just getting back, but that's not really what my focus is going to be about. It's going to be just about how I like this format. And again, I don't like this continued I just don't like the excuse that some of this is for some of these elite teams. And why I say that again is because I truly think this postseason especially is showing us how difficult it is to win a World Series and how difficult it is to win in the postseason. And maybe it's baseball bias and baseball fan bias. I think it's a reminder that this is the hardest championship to win. This is the hardest one. You know, and we'll dive into all of that. So that we'll dive into that, and we'll look into another division win for the Dodgers, another playoff bounce for the Dodgers. Is their reign of terror over? I think I might need to pump the brakes on any sort of criticism on, honestly, almost any NL West opponent here. But we'll dive into all of that on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. But before we do, today's episode brought to you by Sleeper. Swing for the fences on Sleeper Picks, and you can win up to 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code LOCKEDON, and you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right, so the playoff format. And, you know, love it, hate it. Plain and simple, it gives teams a chance. And it emphasizes the fact that for the Rockies, I mean, at this stage, division title isn't even close to my focus. I would rather the Rockies be a fun and exciting wild card team that goes through a grind and figures it and demonstrates their ability to go through that and make the playoffs that way. I know, who am I kidding? I'm going to change my mind immediately in the middle of that one. I mean, obviously, I'll take making the playoffs in any fashion, and the division is a great way. I think the best part about it, though, is you just have to open the door. And then from there, it's the chaos of baseball. It's the streakiness of baseball. It's all of the weird things about baseball amplified to a million. And it's been on full display this year. I read, let me see. I think I was, if I'm going to remember the stat, maybe it's closer or close to it, but teams that had the best record in baseball this year are 1-12 in the postseason. 1-12. That's not format. That's not, you can't just lean on this. That's in the moment. The lights were shining. And these teams that on paper were the better teams, over 162 game sample, were better teams. But then they are getting beat. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that's a fascinating thing. And of course your markets and everything, but I as much as I understand the business side of it, I always hate the arguments. Oh, it's boring because these teams are in. Oh, it's boring because of blah blah blah. Shut up. I mean, really, honestly, I hate how much of the enjoyment, the impact, the significance, the influence of a championship or a sport or anything has to do with just a certain two regions or a region of the United States. Think of how many people downgrade the Nuggets winning a championship and it's not as big of a deal. And we're saying, oh boy, it's going to be a snoozer because it could have been Lakers Celtics. Yeah, give me more LA Boston. Yeah. If you really want to enjoy the sport, if you really want to enjoy the nuances, if you really want to enjoy the zaniness and crazy and high level of competition that is the postseason, then you have to embrace the madness that is baseball. You have to embrace the fact that one of the greatest pitchers of all time struggles in the playoffs, and a team built to be a juggernaut like the Dodgers hasn't been able to get to the World Series consistently, hasn't been able to win World Series. They can rack up division titles. They can pick on the Rockies all they want. But more often than not, in the biggest series of the season, these big name, big market, big whatever, big blusterous teams are falling flat. And that gives rise to teams like the Diamondbacks, like the Rangers, that become more interesting, and a team like the Phillies. All teams that were good this year, all teams that had the Rangers could have been division winners. The Diamondbacks, one of the most surprising teams in the entire league. And Philly, again, just showing that give us a chance. And if you had to come through Philly, it's going to be miserable. No one wants to go there. And I'm sorry, like the attitudes and the mindsets and what you're hearing from some of the fans and some of the players and some of the people on these struggling good teams, I'm sorry, you're in the moment. You're in the grind. It's time to step up. You are the cream of the crop of baseball. You have to show that in the biggest moments. So that's why this format is so key for the Rockies. In 2007 is an example. They gave themselves a chance, and they got hot at the right time. Just give yourself a chance. Division titles will be great. Division titles would be awesome. I happily would be the best team in the NL West. That would be great. But at the end of the day, I just care about the Rockies getting in there. And maybe the stress and everything and going through, and of course, in the wild card series and all the steps you have to take to get there. But when a team can overcome that, when a team can go through the wild card, when a team can get better as the season goes on, when the team is gelling and moving at the right time, that's one of the coolest and most exciting times to be a fan. Doesn't have to be just a division winner. Just making the playoffs is enough. And then, unlike when the Rockies had, in the Rockies series in the past, and the last time the Rockies were in the postseason, you give a little bit of a more of a chance instead of just a do or die situation. And the Rockies going 500 in their two chances in that format, great. That's good. But now they at least can have a little more ground under their feet and a little more opportunity to succeed in the postseason when they eventually get back there. Got to get there first. But again, it's not what we were talking about today. We were talking about we're talking about the format and why it's built. It's hard for me to, I don't want to just keep repeating myself, but like for fans of teams like the Rockies, I just think making the postseason a bigger reality for teams like this just will do wonders and will make things more interesting for so many teams and fans. Because then when they get in, they can do, I think it's exciting to see how the playoffs are shaking out. There are teams that, of course, I was rooting for in there that underperformed and certainly would have liked to see some deeper series and things like that. But that's not how it goes. These are the playoffs. And baseball that's why October baseball is so cool, because sometimes the way it shakes out doesn't make any sense. And you just get to experience something a little bit different. And this postseason, with the exception of, there are some usual teams, of course, Houston making its 7th straight ALCS. Holy smokes. What a machine that is, too, man. Going up to the wire at the end of the season, and then turning out to be division champs and getting yourself back in the ALCS. Houston. You just look at them, and they're the one machine that's been able to make it work more consistently. But I just think I think the baseball postseason is really cool. I think the amount of different storylines and the amount of different options just makes it really cool and gives teams a chance. And I mean that in 2 ways. Let's elaborate more on that in segment number 2 coming up here on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. But before we do that, don't miss out on all the playoff action at Sleeper. They got you covered, because I know you're out there. I know you got good reads on the game. I know you're a daily fantasy baseball expert. Why not put it to the test at Sleeper and get 100 times your cash on daily fantasy baseball? Baseball's never been more exciting than it is right now in the thick of the playoffs. Pick more or less on stats for your favorite star, like home runs, hits, strikeouts, and more, for 100 times payout on Sleeper. Get your picks right and you could win big. Use promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. And folks, like I said, just pick your favorite players. If you believe in the Braves bouncing back, or you believe the Phillies are going to dominate, why don't you pick your favorite players, pick up a stat line, and get 100 times your payout on Sleeper? Just pick your over or under on the home runs, hits, strikeouts, and so many more categories available for you at Sleeper. Sleeper.com. Promo code Locked On for a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast, for free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. Shout outs to all of our everydayers out there, and for you all tuning in on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show by dropping your Rockies hot takes in the comments section of the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Your subscription there, best way to help the show. We really appreciate it. And I was finishing up segment 1 by saying I think this format gives teams on both sides of, like, the perennial division winners, the usual suspects, the big name teams, the big market teams, why it can benefit them and teams like the Rockies, is because it just gives them the platform. It gives you, if you want to flex, and if you really believe that this team's just going to crush its way and sweep its way to the World Series, and you're a dominant team, then you get an opportunity to demonstrate that. And I really do think that the rest factor is something that plays an issue, but I just have a very hard time believing that elite baseball teams can't navigate a time of rehab and getting healthy and approaching that. I mean, maybe it's so there. We know baseball's so momentum driven that it could be so deep rooted in that momentum is truly the ultimate thing. I mean, momentum was a huge factor for the Rockies in 2007. But I think it gives the big name teams, the big market teams, moments to flex their muscles. And they haven't done so. Instead, we get to see other teams. We get to see a Diamondbacks team shine. A Diamondbacks team full of really exciting young players that are going to make significant impacts on the league going forward, take down a juggernaut. And maybe that, it's a bummer that, you're not a fan, or the markets are bigger and the numbers are going to go down because of it, and numbers for the playoffs are already down or whatever. But that's just the minutia of it. If you're really that concerned with with the exposure and that type of stuff, you're missing out on the actual game being played. You're missing out on the fact that the Diamondbacks just swept a division rival that's dominated the division, that's dominated them more often than not. Not this year. The exception was the D-backs have played the Dodgers really well. Flashback to the beginning of the season there. And you get to see a Rangers team flexing its muscle. And you know, there was a moment for the Orioles. The Orioles had a moment, or had their moment. Unfortunately, it didn't come together, but all of these teams had a chance at their moment. And I think it's better that more teams have a chance to make their moments, to make their stamp, to make their impact on the league, to show themselves off to the league. That's why I think these playoffs are enjoyable from the fan perspective, and it's encouraging as a Rockies fan. Instead of the playoffs being so limited, the Rockies can be a third-place wildcard team and give themselves a chance and go through the ringer and have an incredible, crazy postseason run. The Phillies have done it. The Rockies can do it. Or the Rockies could set themselves up in a key moment. What if it's late in the year and they secure their first division title right in time, just as someone has tweaked something a little bit and needs about a week to rehab? Bam, there's your rehab and your health right there. I just think the sanctity of the playoffs isn't as ruined, and the regular season matters for more teams deeper into the year, that it helps keep things engaging and interesting. Look at the AL West, for example. I mean, 3 teams had to follow up until the last game of the season just to see how it shook up. I mean, the interest was at an all-time high going up until the last game of the season. And then for the Astros and the Rangers, it gets to continue. And obviously, unfortunately for the Mariners, not. But that case can go for other divisions and other teams. And so I just think that the changes, I can see why you really want to only have the cream of the crop in. I really do. Because the best teams people want to see the best teams with the biggest names from the biggest areas. And that's part of the business. That's part of the game. But why does that get to be so much more valued than a playoff system that is expanded, that isn't as exclusive, that makes it a little bit easier to get in, but overall, I believe harder to win the World Series? Why does that get knocked down a peg? Why is that not seen as competitive or as fair as another system where teams only had one game, one opportunity to get in, or there wasn't wild card teams? It was only division winners. Baseball plays so many games. Baseball is so weird. Baseball is so streaky that the playoffs give the moment of putting it all together in the right possible time. Putting the best lineup forward and having your players go out and give their best performances at the best possible time. Whether you're the number 1 seed, 100+ win Dodgers or Braves, or the Diamondbacks just making it in. The playoffs gives them all a chance and levels the playing field a little bit more than what you think and what your perception of just the regular season. And that's what makes playoff baseball so exciting and so fun. Because at the end of the day, every win is one step closer to getting to that goal and one less team in your way. And am I jealous. I am jealous of playoff baseball. The atmosphere in Philly is awesome right now. And the atmosphere in all those home parks, man. I mean, it is. There is nothing like it. There's nothing like a stadium full of baseball fans having to hang on to every single pitch, a reaction to almost every single pitch, the end of ball games, big strikeouts in big situations, big home runs. that energy is, I mean, I watch a lot of sports and watch a lot of sports, especially in the playoffs and stuff, but just because of my ultra fandom, I think, that's what this is steeped in. But there's just nothing like the emotions of watching a postseason baseball series. And it's really unfortunate we haven't gotten to do that a lot as Rockies fans, because it's the energy and atmosphere of baseball in October can't be topped. But hey, maybe one day soon we'll be talking about Rockies baseball there. So there we are, soapbox kind of day, and kind of just circles back to the main takeaway, I think, when it comes for the Rockies in the playoffs right now. Make it and give yourself a chance. See what happens from there. Get in there. Just start by giving yourself the chance. And then hopefully you can build towards, and hopefully the streak is right, and you're gonna and the Rockies can take it all the way. Let's talk about the Dodgers losing again, and if that is going to change a lot in the NL West next year. Does it open the door for the Rockies to get their first division win? No, it doesn't. But does it make things more interesting next year for the NL West? Maybe. I'm still kind of hesitant on some stuff. But before we do that, got to tell you about Jase Medical. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase Case. The Jase Case provides 5 antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jase Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Get $20 off the antibiotics from Jase Medical by using the code LOCKEDON at checkout at jasemedical.com. That's code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com. $20 off when you use the promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. We're also on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show, letting us know about what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies by posting in the Locked On Rockies comment sections. And we're talking about the playoffs. We're talking about how the Rockies are a team that will benefit from this playoff format, and how they would be a team that just give yourself a chance, see what happens, and go from there. As we've learned from this, it's just get in, play your best ball possible, and you can go. The right mindset, the right momentum. Teams are taking down the biggest names in the business and rolling on through. Speaking of one of those teams, those big name teams not winning and not succeeding, the Dodgers out early here in the playoffs, not making it to the NLCS. Another division win without a World Series win, another 100-win season without the World Series. And as I'm steeped in jealousy in saying those things, you start to wonder. I mean, the Diamondbacks took them out, and the Padres are hoping to rebound next year. Who knows what the Giants might do, and the Rockies maybe slowly bubbling to life in the bottom of the West. Is the LA reign of terror over in the NL West? And I really don't think so. I mean, truly, until we see this stretch broken up consistently, until we see a perennial challenger to the NL West crown, maybe it's the Diamondbacks, who knows, with this new young team. I don't really think my philosophy of the NL West this offseason and right now is to really do any undermining of them. I mean, I think the Dodgers deserve criticism and critique for not dominating in the playoffs and not scoring and not hitting well and things like that, and getting beat by a little brother type NL West team. But there's plenty of things to point to, I guess. But the fact of the matter is, the depth, the money, the organization, all of that just simply points to the fact that the Dodgers can reload every season. They can if they fall short, they can lock and load and reload and re-equipped and go through farm system, through free agency, through trade to rebuild and rebuff that team. I don't necessarily think that I can think of a moment where the Dodgers would ever be consistently not in the division title talks. Again, I think San Diego had a burst of life there at the end. San Diego is very weird, but there's too much. There is too much talent. There's too many things to shake up. But I just don't think anybody in the NL West has demonstrated the consistency as much as the Dodgers. The Giants have been able to be consistently okay to average to good and had, and surprising for sure. But even with this early postseason exit, I still just don't think that the Dodgers are going to be seeing enough. The Dodgers empire to me will still remain strong, and maybe that's just because I have because we're Rockies fans. That's probably why it's deep seated and deep rooted there. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm surprised that the Dodgers lost. I don't know the way to think of it, just because it's really strange. It's really strange to see the Dodgers when they've lost in the postseason, how they looked and how they've lost. And I mean the Diamondbacks just throttled them. Well, crooked numbers, big innings. I mean, it could be a signal, but I think the influence and the significance of the Dodgers is still too much to really start counting them out anytime soon. Maybe we'll see how the offseason goes, but the team did just have 2 MVP candidates. They were dealing with injuries at pitcher. They're the Dodgers empire that anyone would want to go and play for, just about. So I don't know, but I think the Diamondbacks have definitely cemented and established themselves as the threat now. I mean, the second place or the one that's coming. We talked to Miller Thomas about this back in the beginning of the season when Arizona was off to that great start, and especially was headlined by the fact of taking down the Dodgers. I can't remember if it was a sweep or an early season sweep or something, but really a moment where the Diamondbacks flexed on the Dodgers early on, and there were the signs. There were definitely some stuff to look at there and see that the Diamondbacks have had that. And obviously throughout all the matchups against the Diamondbacks this year, the Diamondbacks absolutely throttling the Rockies all season long. I mean, no real surprise, just because, again, it just circles back to playoffs are wacky too. And the Dodgers have just not always navigated the trickiness of October baseball. But one thing's for certain that they've done, they're at least there. And just like we were talking about all in the first and second segments, they're giving themselves a chance. Worked in 2020. I still count it as a real championship. But it's going to work again. Because if you giving yourself a chance, give yourself a chance. Folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for tuning in today and joining us here. Thank you to all our everydayers out there, and thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Check us out on your favorite streaming service or on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show by posting your comments in the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section, firing off your hot takes and thoughts about the Colorado Rockies. Stay up to date with all things Colorado sports with the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs podcasts available for you here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And until next time, I'm Paul Holden, signing off.